Hi, I'm Malerie, and this is Between Generations. What stands between generations? Is it time? Is it morals? Is it experience? Are we living in the same world as the generations that come before us? Or have we redefined a new normal? In this series, we dive into how we could heed the lessons of the past and integrate them into a life that will unite us all. Between generations. Tulsa's musical history is rich, and its roots are intergenerational. In today's episode, Music to My Years, we explore how music has evolved and flourished in Tulsa over decades. Join us as we spotlight Tulsa's musical pillars and how they have paved the way for generations to come.
The city, which was known as the oil capital of the world, is becoming more known for its booming musical scene. In fact, Rolling Stone magazine published an article in January stating that Tulsa may be the next Austin. But Tulsa's musical history dates back to the days of Western swing, a genre with country roots at Kane's Ballroom, the creation of the Tulsa sound, a mix of rockabilly, blues, and rock and roll started by Leon Russell, to the funk and R&B ushered by Charlie Wilson and the Gap Band. Over the years, Tulsa has produced a laundry list of talent. Ryan Tedder from One Republic, Wayman Tisdale, the Jacob Fred Jazz Odyssey, John Moreland, and most notably, Hanson, to name a few. The legend continues to grow to this day, with no shortage of live music, an influx of musical festivals, and a new generation of artists who continue to keep the Tulsa sound alive. We sat with a few musicians to see how it's evolved.
I've always been involved in Tulsa music. As far as getting in the scene, I met Verse in Algebra at Oil House as a collective downtown. I met them at Hibiscus and they invited me to one of their shows probably 8 years ago. And I showed up, it was at the Crystal Pistol at the time. It used to be the Yeti, which is now the pizza spot. So I showed up and it was we had fun, performed and we did our thing, and then from then on, it just kept building from there, and that's where the World Culture Music Festival came out of that, out of those relationships, and where we at now.
My name is Jimmy Joe Bruner. I've been in the music industry since 1980, the day of birth. My history really started when I was born in 1980. My dad had a studio in the house. He had equipment, he had a band. A funk band, the Billy Bruner band. But even before I was born, my dad was, going to school with Charlie Wilson and the brothers, and also gigging with Bobby Eaton and cats like that, Perry Harding. There was a lot of funk bands here in Tulsa. You had PPI, Party People Incorporated, you had the Silman Brothers, just too many to name, you know what I mean? My production has started, I would say, 1998. I just started messing around. No one ever taught me how. I just watched my dad and started messing with the equipment myself. So that's where when I got into production. Back then it was pretty much hip hop and R&B only. Wasn't no live music. I always told myself I would never play in a live band, but it ended up happening the last couple of years, which is awesome. But it's a privilege to carry that torch. Like I said, I started in '98, but I grew up around these cats for 18 years. My Uncle Lester, my Uncle Perry, and I just sat around and watched these cats, and I'm like, how can I pitch in, you know what I mean? So then came the digital game. So that's where it really started, when a lot of the older cats couldn't pick up on the computers, couldn't pick up on the recording. Things had changed. The Pro Tools used to be just all mixing boards, you know what I mean? Reel-to-reel tape. So once they knew that I could help with the digital, I started that way, you know what I mean? Started sequencing stuff, engineering. And then I noticed there was a gap in between the cats that I was producing and my uncles in the live shows I would go to. And most of the recording sessions was with my uncles, not even the cats I was working with. So that's when I started to notice the big gap in between this generation and that generation, you know what I mean? So I'm doing everything I can to try to blend those two together. It's working out well, you know what I mean? Dow Tone has used Perry, George Young has used Perry. My pops has been on a couple of hip hop records here in the last couple of years. So I think that someone has to do it. If it has to be done, it could be me.
I'm the founding executive director of the Woody Guthrie Center in Tulsa. And as part of my job, in addition to running this space, I'm also the chief curator. So I curate exhibits, provide information about Woody. When we do programs, various places around the country, I'm there kind of being the voice of Woody. I've studied Woody for 20 odd years as part of the founding organization that put on the Woody Guthrie Folk Festival in his hometown for its first 17 years. Our mission is to preserve Woody's body of work within our archive, but also share with a new generation his importance in American history. And also by sharing Woody's importance and what he did during his short lifetime to inspire a new generation to understand the power of their own voices through the arts. Woody's message was through music, but the important part were the words. It wasn't the melody. It was the inspiration to change the world. So we want to make sure that everyone understands that they also have this ability to use their talents to put a positive message out into the world.
Fire in Little Africa is a 100-year commemoratable album that we put on for to not only expose people of the race massacre, but to just to commemorate and just put on for our ancestors before us, like just to let them know we out here and we still pushing that mentality and still pushing that lifestyle. And we got together with about over 50 artists from Oklahoma City, from Tulsa, and teamed up with the Woody Guthrie Center and the Bob Dylan Center. Shout out to them. And we just put on a big album. We recorded it in 5 days, and it comes out next summer.
The energy was crazy to be able to record all those different artists, different vibes, and to produce. You know, I was an engineer and a producer. So it was just one of the best times of my life was doing that project. Pretty cool. A lot of relationships built too. For
Woody in particular, I think most people realize he wrote This Land Is Your Land. Most people don't realize that he wrote over 3,000 other lyrics, and many of which don't have music set to them yet. As people traveled to Tulsa to learn more about Woody, to see items from musicians who follow in his footsteps, like Chet D and Tom Morello. So, you know, it goes beyond the Dust Bowl and This Land Is Your Land and really dives into how someone becomes an inspiration. We've got an initiative that's called Folk the Vote, and, you know, sharing information with panelists about voting initiatives, learning more so that we have an educated community out voting and inspiring people to that, you know, their civic duty is to go out and let their voices be heard for everyone, not just for themselves, but for everyone. But it all comes underneath who Woody was and what he represents.
And so the thing about Tulsa is we will create our own sound, and we have created our own sound, and it's been that way for years. Even in the early 90s hip hop, it still was, you know, a piece of our 80s funk here in Tulsa. So that's where my history started with funk, was just hanging around my dad in the studio, you know, him teaching me different songs, giving us history on the funk. And like, Tulsa is funk, that's what we are. Cowboy funk is what I call it. You know, we got pretty different, you know what I'm saying? We dressed in hats, you know what I mean, the bell bottoms, but the sound was so crazy. Like, these boys are funky, you know what I mean?
Shout out to the Gap Band.
Shout out to the Gap Band. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of cats, my dad played with cowboy hats and shingles on the jean jacket, you know what I'm saying? Like, swinging around on stage. Like, that's something that I never seen from any other artist, even Bootsy.
We're right in the middle and have absorbed all influences of music, and it comes out through music of Leon Russell and J.J. Cale and the Gap Band. I mean, it's all there.
I love Tulsa, man. We're mature, we're supporting each other. We're accepting different music. You know what I mean? It may not be what we like, you know what I mean? But we will accept it, we will share it, you know, we'll promote it.
Anytime I need something, I know that there are people in this community that I can go to and pitch wild ideas, and they'll find a way to help me make it happen. I absolutely love that.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode of Between Generations. Tulsa has made quite a name for itself in producing some great music. Let us know in the comments your favorite Tulsa artists. And if you like this video, make sure you hit the like button and press subscribe. Again, I'm your host Malerie, and be sure to join us every other week on YouTube for Between Generations.